Public Properties Corporation, and Ashley Morgan is subbing for Cam today, and she's going to read the summary, and I'm going to ask Ms. Hamilton to call the roll of the members of the Public Property Corporation Board.
It doesn't matter. Judge Covington.
Present.
Myself. Mr. Livingston.
Here.
Mr. Hostetler.
Present.
Ms. Ray. Here. Mr. Holland.
Here.
So if you would read the summary of the resolution.
A resolution of the Board of Directors of the Scott County Public Projects Corporation authorizing the issuance of Scott County Public Projects Corporation First Mortgage Revenue Bonds, the Judicial Center Project, in the approximate principal amount of $50 million at the direction of the County of Scott, Kentucky, authorizing the issuance of one or more series of Scott County Public Projects Corporation First Mortgage Revenue Bond Anticipation Notes, the Judicial Center Project, relating to the bonds, authorizing the execution of a lease and a mortgage relating to the bonds, and the notes to produce revenues to pay the principal and interest on the bonds and the notes, and to provide security to bondholders and note holders, providing for the sale of the bonds and the notes, and authorizing other actions in connection therewith. This authorizes the Scott County Public Projects Corporation, hereinafter corporation, acting on the authority of the Scott County Fiscal Court to issue, 1, the corporation's first mortgage revenue bond anticipation notes, the Judicial Center Project, Series 2023 in an aggregate principal amount of $7,500,000, Series 2023 notes. 2, one or more additional series of the corporation's first mortgage revenue bond anticipation notes. 3, the corporation's first mortgage revenue bonds, the Judicial Center Project, and one or more series, the bonds in an approximate aggregate principal amount of $50 million. 2, it lays out how the proceeds of the Series 2023 notes, additional notes, and bonds shall be applied. 3, authorizes the corporation to issue approximately $50 million principal amount of the bonds. 4, authorizes the corporation to issue bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of the bonds. 5, lays out the manner of execution, delivery, and authentication of the bonds and notes. 6, authorizes a mortgage by and between the corporation and the trustee named therein. 7, authorizes the corporation to enter into lease with the county and AOC. 8, authorizes the corporation to execute, comply with, and carry out the provisions of a continuing disclosure agreement. 9, lays out that the corporation shall assign all of its rights under the lease to the trustee as additional security for the payment of the bonds and notes. 10, authorizes the agents of the corporation, financial advisor, and bond counsel to take such actions necessary for the sale of the bonds and notes. 11, authorizes the execution of all documents necessary to issue and deliver the bonds and notes. 12, states that if any section, paragraph, clause, or provision of this resolution shall be held to be invalid, the invalidity of such section, paragraph, clause, or provision shall not affect any of the remaining provisions. 13, repeals all conflicting ordinances, resolutions, orders, or parts thereof. And 14, takes effect upon adoption.
Okay. This full text.
The full text of this resolution is available for examination at the office of the Scott Fiscal Court Clerk, 101 East Main Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324.
So just to make sure everybody's clear, the court approved this at our last meeting, but the Public Projects Corporation Board has to approve it as well. So that's what we're doing right now. We've read the summary. Are there any questions or comments related to that?
Well, just so I'm making sure I'm understanding right, actually, no money's going out, nothing
That's my understanding.
Until the project, I guess,
Yes,
gets closer, gets underway.
that's my understanding. Any other questions? And it's renewing those anticipation notes. Yeah, it's the same thing. So any other questions or comments? A motion? You're not on the board. Is there a second a second for Mr. Hostetler? Any other questions or comments? All those board members that approve, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion. Second from Michelle. All those in favor to adjourn, please say aye. All right.
I told him he didn't get the email about the meeting starting at 6 o'clock.
It sounds like Michelle should be sitting. Do you want to come up here? Okay.
So with that said, we will call our meeting to order, the regular meeting of the Scott County Fiscal Court. Today is the 27th of April. It's hard to believe that we have moved along. Just for the record, please let it reflect that Ashley Morgan is sitting in for Cam Culbertson today. And then I'd like to ask everyone to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Let us pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Hamilton, will you call the roll?
Mr. Hostetler?
Present.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Wallace?
Here.
Mr. Corman?
Present.
Mr. Ellison? Mr. Pratt?
Here.
Mr. Livingston? Here. Mr. I'm sorry, Ms. Morgan?
Present.
Judge Covington?
Present. So that takes care of that piece of business. Number 4 are LGEA and CRA public hearing. I'll just read this. Budget hearing regarding proposed use of county road aid and local government economic assistance, LGEA funds. The public hearing will be held at the Scott County Fiscal Court at the courthouse on April 27th, at 7 p.m. for purpose of obtaining citizens' comments regarding possible uses of the county road aid and local government economic assistance funds. All interested citizens of the Scott County are invited to submit verbal or written comments on the possible uses of those funds. Any person who cannot submit written comments can attend this hearing, but wishes to submit comments should contact the office. And I think we need to ask now, was there any comments submitted?
There were none.
There's no comments submitted. Is there anyone here that would make comment? And then, do we need to do anything else?
JR will handle the
JR
rest.
will take it from there. All right.
This year's budget, I'm going to propose to repave Bethel Road, a section of Davis Turkey Foot Road, Hilltop Road, North Taylor Lane, New Zion Road, Plummer Road, Stonetown Road, Sword Road, section of Skinnersburg Road, and Woods Court.
New Zion is essentially the horseshoe that you and I checked out as well. Okay. Questions or comments for JR? Motion? We have a motion. We have a second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, JR. Next, we'd like to consider the minutes from our previous meeting that were shared by email. Any questions or comments regarding those minutes as presented?
Motion.
Motion from Mr. Hostetler. Second from Mr. Ryan Pratt. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Transfers, as presented in your email packet. Any questions or comments related to those transfers? Motion from Mr.
Second.
Livingston, second from Mr. Jones. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Bills and hand checks as presented. Questions, comments?
Actually, there were no hand checks this time.
No hand checks. No hand checks.
Just bills.
Motion from Mr. Hostetler, second from Mr. Corman. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 8, ordinance 2304, second reading, and this is related to the potential issuance of general obligation bonds as related to capital projects that we are proposing.
An ordinance of the Fiscal Court of Scott County, Kentucky, authorizing and approving the issuance of Scott County, Kentucky general obligation bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $15 million for the purpose of financing the acquisition and construction of an emergency medical services, county clerk, and/or sheriff office facilities, including the acquisition and construction of such other capital improvements for county-owned and operated buildings as may be required, authorizing the levy of a direct annual tax on all taxable property within the county, in addition to all other taxes in an amount sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on the bonds to the extent that revenues are not sufficient, and authorizing the taking of all other actions, including the execution and delivery of a continuing disclosure agreement, tax certificate, official statement, and such other documents, agreements, and certificates necessary or required for the issuance of the bonds and the financing of the projects. This contains a preamble stating that the Scott County Fiscal Court desires to finance the acquisition and construction of emergency medical services, county clerk, and/or sheriff's office facilities, and that the county proposes to issue general obligation bonds in a total amount not to exceed $15 million. This contains definitions of terms, contains provisions regarding the necessity for and authorization of the bonds, contains provisions regarding the form and execution of the bonds, authentication, and optional and mandatory redemption, contains provisions regarding compliance with the Constitution, designation, and certification of public project, authorization of tax, pledge of tax, and pledge receipts to payment of bonds, and designation as general obligation bonds. Contains provisions regarding authorizing the execution of documents authorized and approval of state local debt officer. Contains provisions regarding employment of financial advisor and bond counsel, advertisement and sale of bonds, and acceptance of bids. Contains provisions regarding establishment of funds. Contains provisions regarding registration of bonds, duties of bond registrar, paying agent, and depository. Contains provision regarding tax covenants. Contains provisions regarding the contractual nature of the ordinance. Contains provisions regarding qualified tax exempt obligations designation. Contains provisions regarding disclosure undertaking procedures. Contains provisions regarding severability. Contains provisions repealing conflicting ordinance and states that the ordinance is effective upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination at the Scott Fiscal Court Clerk, 101 East Main Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324.
Questions, comments?
So this is wrapping the EMS and the sheriff's department?
Yes.
Clerk's building? in
It'll
the
wrap
same-
that together. And, you know, once we get these bids out and we get these bids back, then we'll make a detailed plan on the exact amount, and we'll talk about it in court, and then make a decision on how to bond it and do it in the most efficient way without putting too much pressure on our general fund and making sure that we have enough reserve that's adequate.
So I was thinking that the sheriff's clerk's office was gonna be like 13 million.
Yeah, and
then
that
the-
number's just a placeholder.
Okay.
My goal and hope is, this is going to take 2 budget years.
Okay.
Our plan all the way along is, if it was around 15, 16 million to do both of it, that, with our half on EMS, is that, could we bond around 8? That 15 is just a placeholder.
And that almost covered with our half with the EMS.
Well, the EMS is looking at, I think it was around 5.3.
Yeah.
We'll only pay for half of that. By the time the sheriff's office and the clerk's office, if we could get in there around 13, I'd feel real solid. But we don't know until we know. But this sets us up to make those decisions. And, once the bids come in, then we sit down and put our pencil to paper one more time and make sure we're making good decisions. Any other comment or question? Does that sound like what's been shared in the past?
One more comment. I'm not against the EMS building, but I'm still against the
You're still
sheriff's
against
building.
sheriff's
So I
office.
just want that to reflect
No,
where my
I-
vote will stand, so.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Totally respect that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Would there be a motion? Motion from Kelly, second from David. Any other comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No. With that said, the matter passes, motion passes, and we'll move forward. That will lead us on down to library board reappointment. I think there's 2 names submitted. The top name was Kim Hay, and she is a reappointment and has served as the treasurer, I believe, of that board for the library board. Stacy, did you have the other name right there in front of you?
Dan Miller.
Dan Miller.
And Dan Miller had been on the board before, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not advocating
No.
for him at all. Are they going out and soliciting multiple people? Or do you know that process? I know it's through the library.
It's through the library, and they have to submit the names to the state. The state then sends us the 2 names. Is that the correct process?
Yeah.
But how they advertise openings, and I'm not privy.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions or comments about
No,
those 2
Those
names?
are 2-term limits, I think, those board appointments. So I'll make a motion to reappoint Ms. Hay.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll say.
Second for Mr. Jones. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next will be Resolution 2313, Sheriff's Grant. Lieutenant, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
You've been a busy man.
Usually am.
We appreciate your efforts.
Thank you, sir. This resolution, we're gonna apply for the Homeland Security grant. This year, we were gonna, based on past awards, we were gonna apply for a infrared camera system for our helicopter. It's one of 5 in the state. We need a resolution passed that amount, close to $425,091. We're gonna ask for all of that from Homeland Security, but we would need a resolution.
But there'd be no match from us. And that would help on search and rescue, help with EMA, all those.
It would help with all that. These 2, Sergeant Record, our helicopter pilot, and Detective Carson flies with him. They can answer any questions about the helicopter. I do the grant, but they've been immensely helpful about all the information on what it does. So if anybody has any questions about that, they can answer that.
Questions or comments, and we have a resolution prepared, and if there's no other questions, we'll read.
I got one question.
Yes, sir.
So is this looking for drugs as well, like the infrared, and you're seeing the heat and stuff come out? of if they're doing, like,
We do assist Caspian Fish and Wildlife, but I'll let them answer that one.
yeah. I get helicopters to fly over my house all the time, and people ask me,
What are you doing over there?
Yeah. Well,
Is there some
I kind of need to know all this stuff.
Is there a plume of heat coming?
I'm Chad Carson, I'm detective here at the Sheriff's Office. I was previously with Lexington Police Department for 21 years, and I was a tactical flight officer in Lexington, and I still am a certified TFO. To answer your question, as far as being able to find droves with a FLIR, you're not typically finding narcotics with a FLIR. Obviously, there's a color camera that's integrated into a forward-looking infrared where you can switch back and forth between the infrared to a color camera. You can clearly see, let's say, a marijuana patch out in the county for something like that, but you wouldn't be finding drugs. There's actually some federal case law in regarding to FLIRing someone's house with an infrared camera. Obviously, if someone has an indoor grow operation, it's going to glow brighter at night than the corresponding houses within the same neighborhood. But there's actually case law against us doing that. We have to have a warrant to do that type of operation. So basically what a FLIR does is you're looking for definitive heat patterns and suggestive of human interaction. So if someone flees from the authorities, we can find that person in total and complete darkness. If someone's lost out in the county, we can find that person in total and complete darkness. Canopy otherwise, you know, with restrictions as far as the canopy and the foliage that's over a certain area. We've been able to find people hiding under things, hiding inside things, depending on what's going on. From a search and rescue standpoint, I think this is a game changer, especially for this county and for the platform that we have, because we do a lot of search and rescue here in Scott County with the Air Act.
Yeah, and the city used to have a drone, I think, that does that.
Same concept.
Yeah.
They had a small FLIR on the drone. I think they still have that. This is a much larger scale with the ability to cover a much more vast area at one time. Acres of area, actually. To be able to clear in a fraction of the time with a drone.
Any other questions?
Often, do you all do patrols, or is this just like, oh, there's somebody lost, we take the helicopter up, or do you all do regular?
Sure. So most of the flights we do are training flights. So, you know, you're preparing for emergency procedures that would happen and stuff like that. So we do a lot of training flights. In those training flights, we'll throw in a patrol flight and things like that. We'll go over the county and just see what we see. Sometimes we've been asked with Fish and Wildlife if we can take them around, and we'll kind of just fly over our county and then we'll take them to their district wherever they are and stuff. So we do that kind of stuff, but it's not like just driving a car around the county and stuff like that. We try to have a purpose when we're up. We're doing multiple things, training and seeing the county and things like that. But usually, like when we go up, we'll make several needs out of it and things like that. Here lately with the flock cameras and things like that, it's generating a lot of activity such as pursuits and things of that nature. So if we can be readily available with a camera to be able to record those and save those for evidence, we would be up a little bit more to be able to fly those flights over those pursuits. And then that makes it safer for us, we can fly higher. So when you get complaints, we can see better with the camera, so we don't have to fly as low for visual inspection. Now we can do it from a mile over this way and, you know, at 2,000 feet or 2,500 feet. So we can make it quieter, we can make it, you know, less over top of someone's house or someone's field or their animals, things like that. So that would help in that nature. But as far as just patrol, if we just don't go out and say, hey, we're just going to patrol the sky for this shit. We try to incorporate it into some training and make multiple use out of the flight. So it's most efficient.
I've made requests in the past for visual over landmarks that we needed, you know, have a look at, and so it's another piece of, you know, helpful for county government.
Yeah, I mean, there's several. I mean, we can do tactical air surveillance where we're watching suspects, and we can do it kind of from a distance where they don't necessarily think that we're watching them with a camera that way, whereas with visual inspection, we're kind of closer, and it makes noise and things like that. The search and rescue, the maintaining, just kind of what's going on in the county as far as, if, you know, we had flooding, we
flew to Mayfield and helped Graves County officials and stuff see where they need the help resources move to and take care of that. So we've done operations where it's helpful to be able to see and know where resources should be sent or kind of what's changing in the county and things like that. So it's got many uses. And then with the camera now we can record it and report back as opposed to maybe just recording with the cell phone like we had.
Any other questions? If you'd read the resolution. Thank you, Ashley.
A resolution of Scott County, Kentucky, authorizing the judge/executive to make application for funds administered through the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security and upon arrival to enter into an agreement with KOHS to execute any documents which are deemed necessary by KOHS to facilitate and administer the project and to act as the authorized correspondent for this project. Whereas KOHS administers a state homeland security grant program, and whereas Scott County, Kentucky desires to make an application for state homeland security grant program funds in the amount of $425,091 to be used to purchase infrared equipment for the Scott County Sheriff's Office helicopter, and whereas it is recognized that an application for an approval of KOHS funds imposes certain obligations and responsibilities upon the county. Now, therefore, be it resolved this 27th day of April 2023 by Scott County, Kentucky. The judge/executive is hereby authorized to execute and furnish all required documentation, including a memorandum of agreement as may be required by KOHS for the furtherance of the above referenced project and to act as the authorized correspondent for said project.
Questions or comments? Would there be a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion.
Motion for Mr. Jones, second for Mr. Hostetler. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, sir.
We need to say congratulations on the grant that got awarded today.
Thank you for reminding me. The 92,000 approximately,
Yes, it's a change.
and that will fund a full-time DARE officer.
Yes, sir. The goal is to have Deputy Thomas go ahead and teach DARE to all 5th grade students and 9th grade students next year.
And 9th grade students.
So we're doing it full-time. The grant includes his salary, money for the prescription drop box, some supplies for his DARE supplies, and $9,000 for fuel for him to travel throughout.
Well, that's awesome, and kudos to the Sheriff's Department and for all those that put in work on the application. Much appreciated. Any other comments on that or questions? All right, thank you. Next, we have Mike Woolham with Strand and Associates, just the MS4 service agreement, and Mike is here. Mike, thank you for being here.
Yeah, he did.
Three items tonight for your all's consideration. And I've got copies in case you all don't have one copy, you'd like to see one. The first item, these relate to the MS4 program, basically a continuation of our services. Our last agreement that we had before goes back to 2021, so it's been almost 2 years. And so we've actually stretched the dollars that we were given back then to help administer the program farther than we anticipated. And so it will push us back for FY23. We're here today to talk about FY23, where we've actually done some of the work. But the three items include the first one in the packet is just an extension of the service agreement. It synchronizes the work that we're doing for the county with the same work that we're doing for the city, because you all are co-permittees and they run on the same cycle, share responsibilities. There are two task orders in here. One is for hourly services that
kind of miscellaneous on-call things that come up, just based on request and need. The second task order is one for fixed items, and they're sort of listed in there, and it includes the annual report and some of the things like the facility inspections that we work with Jared on for all the municipal facilities. And so that would be what the second one is. And so if you have any questions about anything there, I can go through that in detail, or if you all had a chance to review and are okay with things, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mike, you have my greatest respect because the reading on this is detailed, and the MS4 in itself, just all the data and all the you got to be very disciplined to be as detailed as you all are, and we appreciate that expertise. And any questions about those agreements?
One, Mike, do you need 3 separate motions, 2 orders in agreement, or all one?
You can do it however
It doesn't matter to you.
It doesn't matter for us.
I believe we could ask for a motion to approve the agreements for the MS4 service as presented. Would anyone be willing to make that motion? Mr. Hosteller would, and a second from Mr. Livingston. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. I'm going to intentionally skip down Parks and Recreation Board appointment. I'm going to circle back up there. I shared a candidate's, an applicant's name, that had previously applied for our Parks and Recreation Board, and I told you that I was going to share 2 other names, and did not email those, but we have passed those down there along. But my recommendation to this board is to consider Mr. Temple Jewett. Temple is working currently with Kentucky Association of Counties. He's originally from Scott County Stamping Ground, family from down there, and has lived in Scott County for a long, long time, and has a lot of experience, and has volunteered to serve on our advisory board for our. What do you say there, Roy?
Somebody's opposed.
Temple's volunteered or voluntold. I twisted his arm to serve on the advisory board, and tonight you were elected the chairperson of our advisory board for the reservoir property. So I appreciate his willingness to serve, and believe he would be a very good candidate with a lot of experience to serve on that Parks and Rec board.
I'm gonna make a motion before he can withdraw.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any other questions?
Is there any conflict with the 2 boards then?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so. I think it really feeds off each other well.
Yeah.
Because the advisory board will be working with Parks and Rec and also be working with us to move forward. And I think just having that line of communication will be very valuable.
And the advisory board has no authority. They can just make recommendations.
Need to see a chair of the advisory board.
Yeah.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Any other questions? The second was Kelly Corner. Temple, we appreciate your consideration. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. You can't get out now. Well, we appreciate it very much, and glad to have you serving. All right. Now I'll skip back down. County Attorney, new hire.
Judge Questions, good evening. Yes, on behalf of County Public Service, I'm pleased to recommend the appointment of Lisa Zecker as a child support caseworker. That'll be effective May 8th at $24.75 an hour. She has 8 years of experience working in child support, would be a great addition to the team. That's actually sure that's funny.
Questions? Would there be a motion? Motion for Mr. Jones.
Second.
Second for Mr. Wallace. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Jeff will stay right there, and I want to share that John could not be with us tonight and had a family member ill, and I think everything's on the uptick, pointed in the right direction. But I told John to take care of his family tonight. So if you'll share the information about the promotions, and we'll have any questions.
Sure. You may recall back in November that Lou Zender accepted an acting assignment as a captain due to a captain who needed to be off for an extended period of time due to the surgery he was having. In addition, due to Lou stepping up to serve as the captain, we had somebody step in an active capacity as lieutenant, and that was Stephen Freeman. Now, since that person, Randy Callett, has retired, and his retirement will be effective April the 30th, we need to make these acting assignments permanent. So that's the purpose of what I'm about to recommend now. So on behalf of John Ward, I'm pleased to recommend the appointment of Lou Zender as captain effective April 29th, which is the start of the next pay period, at $20.78 an hour, and Stephen Freeman as lieutenant effective also April 29th at $16.78 an hour. So I present that recommendation to you.
Questions?
What was Mr. Freeman's first name?
Stephen, PH. Questions or comments?
Motion.
Motion from Mr. Hostetler, second from Mr. Pratt. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Road Department new hire.
The last one I have is on behalf of J.R. Brandenburg, who's here with me as well. We interviewed a couple candidates, and we are pleased to recommend James Kermody as an equipment operator laborer, effective Monday, May 1st at $22.05 an hour. Very pleased that James has more than 20 years of experience and also holds his CDL license. So should be a good addition to us. He's got a lot of experience plowing the snow up in New Hampshire. So
Really?
yes, and use much bigger plows and different plows than we have in this area.
Very good. Questions? Comments?
I'll be rich and conscious. How's that put us
It leaves us 4 short, if I'm not
We've got 4
mistaken. Yeah,
Oh,
we got
wow.
a mechanic position to fill, an equipment operator, and we still have those 2 local laborers, which we're looking at converting those to equipment operators in the new budget year, so we probably will not fill those. So technically, we're only going to fill 2 positions between now. At least we hope to fill 2 positions between now and July. Yes.
One thing that, and maybe we can talk about this, we don't have to make a decision tonight, but, you know, I'm going to come to the court and ask, you know, I shared a recommendation that's really structured and based on the training class schedule and with the fire, but the other 2 that we're talking about converting, it's not easy to find good qualified candidates. Maybe between now and our next meeting, we could talk about if we went on and converted those and tried to fill them, how much would it cost us to go on and do that out of this year's budget, just because we know we're going to do that. And then, you know, we've talked about how valuable our mechanics job is, and have we had very many more applicants for that?
No, we've not had any additional ones. And I think everybody's struggling to find mechanics right now.
Yeah.
So we're in the same boat as everybody else.
Yeah.
I've even reached out to the boat tech school in Harrison County and some other places trying to, you know, see if we can find some other additional candidates.
But if knowing how valuable that position is to help keep ambulances and everything on the road, we might have to look at that, go back and revisit that compensation position and look at medians and see where we're at. So we'll bring that back to you all at the next meeting.
Well, just as a comment to that, I mean, we've had to do that in other departments in the past for really the same reason, trying to find folks that are qualified, and in this case, kind of specially highly qualified to take care of those positions. So,
We'll report back. We'll look, get some data, and report back.
it's happened before. We've had to go the same route.
I got that recommendation on the table.
Okay. Motion. Is there a second? Second from Mr. Livingston. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. New Hampshire?
New Hampshire.
All right. EMS agreement, A and B renewal, and then EMS agreement, ambulance transportation. Chris, I'll let you take it from here. We shared those. One's a renewal and one's new.
Correct. The A and B is a contract with our building company that's been in place since about 2014, 15. Every 3 years it has to be renewed. So it's next month, May is the time for that to happen. So they have increased the rate a little bit of what they charge us, but it's less than 1%. I think 6.25. And currently it's 5.45%.
Questions?
So you're good with it, or?
Yeah, I think, everything's going up, and it's a minimal increase. And so I think we've shopped that around a little bit, and can't find anybody out there that can beat that price, so.
Would there be a motion? Motion and a second from Mr. Jones. Motion from Mr. Hostetler, second. Any other questions or comments?
This is for both of them?
No, this is just for the first one.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Now the second one, which is new, and this is with the hospital, correct?
This is Georgetown Community Hospital, and what this will allow us to do, they call us now for their transfers out of that facility. If we have staffing and availability, we'll take those transfers. Some of them we end up writing off because they're not deemed medically necessary, so the insurance won't pay. This agreement will allow us to bill the hospital in those instances, so we can recoup the money from the call.
Questions? Would there be?
Trying to figure out that Medicare equivalency rate. That's a formula that nobody, like will it go through A and B for a non-medically necessary, then you'll bill them?
Now you're talking great.
Is that a motion from you to approve this?
Sure, I just want to know how they're going to figure out the rate from you to approve this.
So we have a motion from Mr. Pratt. Is there a second? A second from Mr. Wallace. Any other questions? Mr. Pratt, if you want to volunteer to help with that rate. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Mr. Pratt, I'm like, your niche has been found on this board. Yes.
Oh, no care general.
Yes. Meeting dates. Trying to think down the road. Proposing moving at November date off of Thanksgiving to 11/21, 9 a.m. or 7 p.m., whatever your all's pleasure is.
Wednesday, correct?
Tuesday.
That's a Tuesday?
Is that? I'm pretty sure it's a Tuesday.
21st is Tuesday.
Yes. Trying to give people, if you wanted to travel that Wednesday, if you know.
I would prefer the 7 o'clock on the 21st.
For what?
7 o'clock on the
I
21st.
thought he said set my clock.
No, 7
I don't know
o'clock.
what that means.
But if you did it Wednesday, I could do it at 9 o'clock with that. That's what we kind of have done in the past, but I'm good with everything.
There's a reason.
I just.
We put a lot of thought into this.
Okay, well, I would prefer 7 o'clock on the 21st November.
Is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
Well,
And then that's with all the other dates too.
So go ahead and do 9 a.m. on the 28th.
Yeah.
That's a second from Mr. Livingston. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Now I've got some new business, and I'm going to start with some exciting news. And we put out an RFP for naming rights for our Farmers Market Pavilion. We advertised it twice. We hand carried the RFP out to every lending institution in Scott County, and we received one bid and proposal, I should say proposal. And I am very pleased to share that this was from Whitaker Bank, and it's for $500,000. They're requesting to have 10 years naming rights, and
Why don't you act like you did when we opened it?
I was jacked up. But Whitaker Bank is offering $500,000 total sponsorship with a period of 10-year naming rights with flexible payment distributions to meet your specific needs. For example, option one could be $500,000 in total to be paid over 5 years, with $200,000 the first year, $75,000 over the next 4. Option two, $500,000 in total to be paid over 10 years, $50,000 per year for 10 years. You know, they threw out 2 options. The extensions are, with no indication of the naming rights start date, we are requesting the naming rights begin on the day of the public grand opening, which makes sense. Upon the expiration of the 10-year term of naming rights, Whitaker Bank would like the opportunity to extend this sponsorship and the right of first refusal to continue with the exclusive naming of the community pavilion. That's a question for CAM. Y'all agree with that? The parties agreed to negotiate in good faith for a continuation of this agreement on terms and in exchange for additional consideration to be negotiated between the parties at the time. A better offer cannot be made to another sponsor or potential sponsor without Whitaker Bank rejecting the same offer first. That's just, we'll have to have CAM review that. But this is just a tremendous, just a great proposal in my book. And I think their proposal is the Whitaker Bank Community Pavilion. That's their proposal for the naming. Rick?
Did you get any other, was there a deadline?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
It was yesterday.
Are you wanting to put in?
Yeah. That's way too many zeros.
But
2 o'clock yesterday.
in full disclosure,
I thought there was a deadline.
Full disclosure, I'll have to pass on voting on this because I am a member of the board at Whitaker Bank. But we only had one bid. This was publicly advertised, shared, and went through the proper routes.
Well, do you need Cam to look at this first before we take any action?
Yes, but I wanted to share the general proposal and that piece. I think Cam has to tell us what we can do or not. Maybe our friends at Keiko might be able to give us some advice too. But just that is a reflection of Whitaker Bank wanting to be a community partner. And they have done a lot of work in our community, and I'm very grateful for their willingness to continue that. And this proposal reflects that community involvement. So I will turn this over to Cam, ask for feedback, and then I'll report back what Cam shares about the specifics.
Just thinking through that a little bit, Judge, isn't there maybe in a way in the contract we have with Whitaker Bank, it could be something like a continuation? We have this with other groups, like we can continue our contract and, based on negotiations and things like that, instead of the first, I don't think first right of refusal will fly, but maybe the continuation of the contract.
We'll try to look into it and
Option, like for 10 years with an option for renewal on 10 years.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't even know, this isn't like we're bidding out for services or equipment or anything like that. They're paying us. I don't know where that falls on the model procurement, that you actually have to bid this out.
I thought the fair way to do it was by public bid, or public request for proposals.
Yeah.
But we've gotten to this point with a proposal and only one proposal, and this proposal is for 50% of the estimated cost. I mean, that's strong. And then I want to share with you, I've been working, and I've attended a state board meeting a week ago, and we were recommended on to the full. I was at a committee level, and our application was recommended on to the full board. Our local Ag Development Council approved $50,000 to go along with 200 from the state Department of Ag. So that's $250,000 other dollars. So that gets us to $750. Plus, I'd gone to our Ag Extension Board, and they had pledged an additional $50,000. So we're looking at $800,000 of $1 million project being funded outside of general fund dollars. So I couldn't be more tickled and proud of the efforts of the fiscal court to bring, this farmers market community pavilion and make it a reality. And we're only using, $200,000 out of general fund dollars. So I'm excited about that, and that's good news. Great news. Any comments, questions, or?
Now, I'm curious why. I know we talked about it before, like when we were doing Red Cross in the Park, but there is zero sponsorship advertising, and you don't have to put banners up. You could put, acceptable, attractive, but why don't we have naming rights or something like that? I mean,
They advertise that for Red Crossing's football stadium, and
for high school.
yes.
Yeah, I'm just talking about like our fields out there. I don't know if we have something.
We've had in the supplemental, I believe it was not West Wakefield at the time, but United Bank had United Bank fields supplemental for a lot of time.
Yeah.
Coca-Cola used to do the scoreboards. So there's been some of that.
Some mixed in.
Yeah.
Maybe something we can revisit. I will move to my second piece of new business. This was shared with you all. The budget committee has met with several groups, not everybody yet. We're working through things. We met with Fire, and Fire has 4 recruits that are getting ready to go through a training class to start on May 1st. But through our budget committee work, as I shared in the email, right now our current staffing plan includes 2 companies at 2,200 Cincinnati Pike, and that's 3 staff per company with a battalion chief staff there. The reason they have 2 companies there is that's the busiest station, most call volume, and then the number of apparatus. They've got the heavy rescue truck, they've got the brush truck, they've got a pumper, and that's that. They have 3 staff members at Sadieville, 3 staff members at Newtown, and 3 staff members at Homestead per shift. So that's a full shift. But we rarely, almost never, have 2 companies fully staffed at 2,200 because they pull from there to make sure we have 3 at our other stations. I feel very, very strongly that we should never have less than 3. And that's done. But with that, we've had vacancies because of injury, retirement, and such. And Jeff, if you want to help me, after we looked after the third quarter, the number of overtime hours that we had accumulated was significant because of this issue. And I don't remember the exact number of overtime hours.
We're on page
14,000.
14,000.
Like I thought there was about 14,000.
Yeah.
Now, with adding the 4, and the request from John was to add 5 new firefighters. My recommendation, the budget committee's recommendation that the budget committee supports, is to add 3, 1 per shift, and the hopes, is that we could that person could float per shift And if everybody was fully staffed, then they would go to Cincinnati Pike. But three new positions would reduce overtime hours by about 9,000 hours is what I remember, if that's accurate. And our goal is to sit down with our fire department and really try to zero in and try to really, hopefully this would greatly impact overtime hours. And we need to do some oversight on a monthly basis, trying to stay in a budget for overtime hours that we could. But the real reason for me to ask you all to consider adding 3 new firefighters to next year's budget, but add them now, is because this training class, it's 14 weeks. I don't want to have 14 weeks of 4 go through, and then when that's over, we turn right around and put 3 through. It just doesn't make sense when we know that we are possibly going to add 3 more to try to address this. The cost, wage and benefit cost per position is around $83,322. The total cost would be around $250,000 for all years all next year's budget. But if we could hire the other 3 from April 15th through June 30th, May 15th, just 6 weeks, it would be about $28,800 out of this year's budget. It just makes sense to try to put 7 through instead of 4 and then turn right around and do 3. I am all ears and would value y'all's feedback.
Well, that'll make it that much quick, if we do this, start them now, that'll make it that much quicker that they can impact this overtime, because that's pretty incredible, those numbers are.
Yeah.
Is there enough time, like, because we hired the 3 already, and then we're gonna, the 4.
They start May 1st.
So we have a running list from this last process, and the object would be to call the next 3 on the list that've gotten their CPAT, that have met all the passed the physical, and then we roll them right in, hopefully within a couple weeks.
I just received word today that these 3 all have their CPAT. They just finished their physical, and there's no issues as of today. We were waiting on the results of a background check, I think, on one of the candidates. We're ready to go to extend offers possibly tomorrow. And then they could give their 2-week notice if they need a 2-week notice, and they can start May 15th. So that process, we run those, the hiring process and make a list, and we work off that list.
Motion.
Yeah.
There's a motion, a second. Any questions or
I
comments?
just want to make a quick comment, and sitting in the budget meeting, and we talked about this extensively, it's really important part of this is to reduce overtime. So I just want to say that. You said it, I want to say it again.
Well, I publicly said that. And
I just want to reiterate that is part of the goal of this.
Yeah.
If it reduces overtime to the extent that we think it will, it basically puts 3 more firefighters in for no additional money because of the overtime reduction, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
So we have a motion,
and-
we have a second.
Well, and one more comment. Yes, I made the motion, Rob made the second. Along with that, David, I mean, the potential's there to keep whittling on that as well, right? You said you thought you could for sure knock out 9,000 of the 14.5 overtime hours, because that's just a huge number. So it's a starting point to keep whittling at that as well, right?
Yes, sir. Motion, second. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Now, do we need to approve the list?
We already approved the
already did
list.
that.
Okay, the whole list from the last meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Once you make offers, then you'll bring those names back. Don't have to?
I don't think so.
All right,
I think we talked about that when we,
yeah.
when we approved the list, didn't we?
All right. Very good. Next, and final thing I have, I think, is the PDI. It's Product Development Initiative. It's economic development. And I have been pouring a lot of my time into this process trying to help us. And the reason I'm doing it is because I feel so strongly that we have to invest in economic development to attract more jobs, good paying jobs. And the only way we can do that is if we have product and property to offer. And there is a grant process going up. The deadline for the actual application is June 28th. But tomorrow is a deadline for a non-binding letter of intent. It is requested, not required. I've talked to this group about our local Lanes Run Business Park and what Jack Connor would like to do on behalf of the business park is to make an application for monies to improve phase 3 of the business park. There's about 100 and a little bit over 120 more acres in phase 3 that if we had that money, we could get the infrastructure in, we could do everything to get it where it's easily sold, shovel ready is what they call it. The request is to put no more than $750,000, could be less, into from us, $750,000 from the city that would be put in the budget, and we would apply for this application, and we would get another $1.5 million from the state to match. So it's a 50-50 match. And those funds would go to improvements in phase 3. All I'm asking you to allow me to sign off on this non-binding letter that's saying we intend to make this application. I will bring back a resolution that you all approve before we make the application, actually. Everybody follow me? The second part of this is the regional plan that we've been trying to work on. And all I have to report on you is I've been working with Richmond, with Madison County very closely, and Judge Taylor actually made a proposal to make a regional PDI application. Well, we're only eligible for up to $2 million match. So if we request 1.5, then we only have 500,000 left. We could use that in a regional application to make $1 million. I just don't have details. We will continue to work on the regional plan and bring back, I hope, a plan that includes multiple counties for a site. And when you think about geography, and you think about economic development, you think about interstate access, you think about, access to infrastructure. And Scott County is very strong with interstate access and soon access to infrastructure as well, but it's all site specific. So I will keep you all abreast, and the letter of intent is non-binding, and there's a meeting tomorrow with the Madison group, but I just don't have any more details other than we're hoping to make a regional plan put together, and they want to put a letter of intent out. I just don't have all the details. But these are non-binding, letters. They're just telling the cabinet, hey, we intend to apply for X. But I would have to bring back to you I intend to bring back to you on the local level and on any regional level, we'd have to bring back a plan and a resolution that has details. But I would ask you all to consider to authorize me to go forward with a letter of intent, approve a letter of intent for a local and a regional plan, knowing that it's non-binding. It's just it's helping move the process along. And I think all of us, I hope all of us would agree that this type of investment helps us for years to come because of that continued revenue stream of new jobs and occupational license fee, ad valorem tax, all those things. But it's critical that we continue to try to attract new jobs and revenue, because the services that we do and the salaries that we pay and such, that's not going to go down. It's only going to go up. And we have to continue to hunt and be aggressive on trying to attract jobs. And I think the local and the regional plans that we're talking about are critical for our future. The city, I've met with the city. Mayor Jenkins is supportive of recommending to the council the same thing on the local, and it's all subject to the approval of the council and the court, but he is also supportive of the regional. But we just have to, there's no details. We're in support of the general concept of trying to put a deal together. And there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of such. So what questions or comments would you all have related to that PDI grant program and a letter of intent for a local and a regional project?
I make a motion we authorize you to do that.
Why would we wait?
Yeah. Well, I want you all to know what's going on, so that's why I bring this to the table.
Why the 1.5 with 1.5 match figure? Like, why would you go for 2? You go for the full match.
That was me, and we might go back to Jack doing the full match, depending on the regional. But let's just play a game, all right? Let's play it. What if? Let's say Madison County's eligible for $2 million. They get a $2 million match. That's 4. We're eligible. Well, another county's eligible for 2. They put in 2. That's 4. That's 8. When I was saying we had that $500,000 left over, we would put that in that regional, get $1 million. But in my opinion, if we had, we would have to have parity in our investment in the project. If we were putting in $4 million, all of us need to put in $4 million, or or if you want a share, a partial, you could put in less. But it's, to me, if we're going to be a potential host to a regional site, then we ought to have a full share. And what I was getting at was, between the city and the county, we would need to come up with that difference to make it even with what everybody else had in the pot. But that's a lot to still work out. That's a great question, Ryan. I'm glad you asked it, and I should have pointed out. We might turn back and change our proposal to the full 2, not leaving any money on the table. That's kind of what you're thinking about. But I just wanted to. I'm trying to do both the local and the regional, and trying to move us forward. So I appreciate your all's comments.
Well, to finish the game, really what we're doing with this motion is, you're saying we're going to show up to the game, bring a bat, we're going to swing it.
We're going to swing.
And then we'll see.
That's perfect. I appreciate that.
Well, you said you were playing a game,
Yeah.
so. But, I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
there's
And
really. we're not-
anything we do will be brought back to this body
Right.
for
And
consideration.
the city will be looking at it on their
And
side.
the city's been in
And
conversation.
and possibly Madison County on
Right.
their side, so,
And then that county in between us. So,
thank you.
questions or comments? Do we have a motion and a second?
I think Dwayne had the motion.
Yeah, you had it. All right, Dwayne had the motion, David with a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. What new business would anyone else have from the court?
Judge, can you give us an update on the Law Road, the session stand? Are we about ready to cut ribbons?
JR, thank goodness for JR. He's been very helpful. And what was you've met with the building inspector for a certificate of occupancy?
Yes, had two little minor issues, 10-minute issues. Ronald Hall with Marilla is gonna meet next Wednesday, and the building inspector is gonna get a CO on correcting those two little issues. The paving, finished paving was completed today.
So the base was down.
Yeah.
They came and did the top coat.
Yes. We've got a good stand of grass on with the last seeding we done, and, had the hydro seeders come in there a week and a half ago and redo some of our spots, so. it's
That was
looking
part of the
right.
contract.
And we had the, new fields sprayed and fertilized with the weeds and everything, so we should be coming on parade in the next couple of weeks.
The hope is that the spray will knock down the weeds and help the grass have a little bit more chance to grow.
Will there be any striping on the parking lot, or is that?
No, that will come next week. Talked to the paper today.
Well, that's part of it, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
So-
you're gonna leave that fence up that's there, the gate that's there, or is that gate coming down?
That gate's coming down. Blake's brought it up, and we're having a fencing contractor come in and block off where the electric gates are at, where nobody can drive up from the backside, and,
So along those lines, JR and I met out there the other day, and we're gonna have, as you pull up that from Schoolhouse Road we're gonna have a 4-plank all the way to the fence line, and then on the other side, go up the hill and then down by the field to keep people from driving up. The other aspect that we want to put in the budget for next year is going down below the new fields and doing that 1-plank guardrail like we did at Great Crossing and run it all the way up to keep people from running on those fields. We'll get a price to add that to the process there.
it's looking wonderful.
One of the things that, we had hoped Mother Nature would have helped us more, but last fall, it was like drought. This spring, we're hopeful that this grass that we've planted will help come on. The one thing that we didn't do, and I was trying to save money, is irrigation. That's something that we can consider in the future if, I hate to spend the money we've spent and then the surface that they play on not be as nice as it could be.
And as much as it's gonna get used, it desperately needs irrigation.
Yeah, I agree with you, JR. So that's a conversation for another day. But I thank you for asking that question, and it's very timely. And anything else? Anything else down here?
I would like to give, sorry. You said, you get it. I do want to thank, kind of related to you, I had a local resident call me in my district about an issue, so I just want to thank the city, 80 Hightower, and Rob Room went out and cleaned out a drainage at their yard, was flooding every time it rained, so just want to publicly say thank you to the city for that. So. Wasn't in your area. I called who's in the county. Who's in the city though? I know you were.
All right. Anything else?
Throw out a praise for the flock cameras. I don't know if you want to speak on it or not,
Yes, I'd like
but
to.
the situation that happened.
In just a few months, so we have been able to solve a few cases as minor as illegal dumping to recovery of stolen vehicles to a few theft cases. But Stamping Ground has one clock camera active, and we, Georgetown Police Department and Stamping Ground, are all integrated in one, where we can receive alerts from each other's cameras onto our system. So we had a suspect from Lincoln County yesterday who we've been told has been frequenting Scott County. We were able to identify a vehicle he was in, place an alert on that vehicle. He's wanted for shooting out of Lincoln County. He came into Stamping Ground on the camera they had active, and Stamping Ground Police Department was able to get out with him first. We arrived. We were able to recover
Chief Whitlock was on it?
and
Officer Giles.
Yes, they're both there.
Yep.
And we were able to recover a stolen shotgun from a theft on Burton Pike County and pick him up for Lincoln County. So they've been a huge success so far.
So, yeah.
You don't mess around. That's awesome. Thanks for bringing that up. No, thanks,
They
Lieutenant.
work.
All right.
I do have something else. This is on behalf of Cam. He's just asking for approval to file a civil lawsuit
Oh,
against.
yes, Ashley.
It's Clayton and Lambert Manufacturing Company. It was a little over $5,000 was paid to them for a grain bin for the fire department, and they never provided that. And Cam has sent them a letter, and I think the fire department has tried to call them. So there's really nothing else. No other
It's
steps to
a
take.
green bin extraction prop, and I would recommend that we authorize Cam to move forward with that.
Motion.
I got a motion, a second down here.
Who's second?
Dwayne, we'll give Dwayne. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. If there's any new business with our court members or friends here, if not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Wait just a minute.
One other thing.
Uh-oh. I don't know if I can read that. Oh, there's been a conspiracy. How are you? This is my sister and my bride, in case you all don't know her. My boss.
This is a proclamation from Scott County, Kentucky, honoring Jackie Ray Covington for a dedicated lifetime of service to Scott County. Whereas Jackie Ray Covington was born in Scott County on August 7, 1942, and resided in Scott County until he passed away peacefully at his home on April 12, 2023. And whereas Jackie was the son of the late A.G. and Beulah Powers Covington, and whereas Jackie was a 1960 graduate of Scott County High School where he was elected senior class president. And whereas Jackie served as the Scott County Road Department Director from 1986 until 2005. And whereas Jackie served as Scott County Clerk from 2005 until 2011. And whereas Jackie was a faithful member of Northside Christian Church and served as the church treasurer for many years. And whereas Jackie enjoyed spending time with his family and grandsons, loved gardening, and was an excellent cook and baker. And whereas Jackie is survived by his devoted wife of 58 years, Sharon Miracle Covington, son Joe Pat, Veronica Covington, daughter Jackie, Merrill Chittenden, grandsons Jacob, Kelsey Covington, Caleb Covington, Isaiah Covington, and step-grandchildren Emily and David Chittenden. And whereas Jackie was preceded in death by his son, Jeffrey Allen Covington, and sister, Betty Covington Linton. And whereas Jackie will be remembered as a husband, father, grandfather, servant to the community of Scott County, and as a kind, genuine friend who will be forever deeply missed. Now, therefore, let it be known that the Scott County Fiscal Court hereby honors and praises Jackie Ray Covington for a dedicated lifetime of service, dated this 27th day of April, 2023.
Thank you.
And a little bit more. A lot of us all went together, so the court, Cam, JR, Tim, basically everyone in the courthouse. So we wanted to do something a little bit more permanent. And so we have 2 weeping red bud trees that we purchased in honor of your dad. Each one we're giving to you. Pioneer House, and one we'd like to plant somewhere in the county, along with a, helping there, 16 by 28 granite
Black granite
monument, and that's how it will read, that we're gonna plant along with the tree. And as you know, your dad was just very special, and, I think we all agree with that all, no? Come on, stop.
We need some help from the family picking a place where this needs to go.
We'll all work together and find a good spot for it. Much appreciated.
Okay, good.
He loves Scott County.
Yeah. Special man, very special.
Thank you all for your kindness. Much appreciated. Whew. Is there a motion to adjourn? And is there a second? No, all right, all those in favor. Thank you all for your kindness. Very, very much. Very touching.